Welcome to part 2 of my answers to you asking me anything. I'm Pete McConville, and this is part 2 of my answers to your asking me anything I did a couple of days ago. This is going to look a bit different to the rest because I just answered all of the questions in one big go. That was over an hour of video. I've sliced and diced that a little bit and I'm injecting these little bits in. So yeah, with no further ado, I'm going to kick into me answering some questions that you were asking, mostly around watches and what I thought of different types, styles and genres of watch. Thanks very much. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so now getting into some questions, less about me, more about watches generally. And we've got Alex asking me a question. If I could take Patek, AP and Vacheron out, who would be my holy trinity brands? Well, A. & Zone is a walk-up starter. It's very hard not to consider them. Most people would think of them now. To tell you the truth, no one else really springs to mind. I mean, you think about independents like F. Pigeon, but does an independent make it? Maybe Moser. They've certainly got the watchmaking chops, and they've got a nice broad catalog. A brand who could do it, and this is something of a paradox because they kind of live below Vacheron, but they've certainly got the chops to do it, would be, funnily enough, JLC. So if Vacheron kind of vanished from the Richemont world, and Richemont said, "Hey, we've got a gap to fill," JLC could just step into it. See, there's other people like Gerard Perregaux who could do it, but they've been so starved for so long. They could get to that level, but they're not at that level. So I don't know who else. Let's just go with ALS and Moser right now. JD Keppel. That's right. What do I think most watch collectors get hung up on that doesn't mean much to me? Watch collectors, I'm not sure, but I will say people who comment on YouTube, people who comment on Facebook, people who are themselves contributors, judging by them, I care about almost nothing they seem to care about. I don't care about in-house movements. I don't care about bracelets. I don't care about loom. What else? I don't care about resale value. What else? Loom. Comparative value. I'm not into saying that one watch costs $50 more than another watch, therefore I'm being ripped off. Yeah, so comparative value is meaningless to me too. Okay, the Swiss made. Thoughts on German versus Swiss made watches and standout brands from both countries. Okay, I can talk about German watches, but I can't talk about Swiss watches. And only because the German industry is actually relatively small when you think about it. There's not a huge variety of brands. And my gut feel is there's a bunch of historic reasons and cultural reasons and geographic reasons potentially. So, which means that the Germans have stayed kind of consistent and true. There's a real Germanic feeling, and it doesn't really matter what you pick. You go AOS at one end, so A. Zona right through, say, Zinn and even Nomos. There's a real, I hesitate to say severity, but there's a real seriousness to what the Germans do. Whereas the Swiss, on the other hand, are kind of all over the place. I mean, the Swiss industry is so much larger, so many more brands, and it kind of, I can't characterize the Swiss industry the same way as I can the Germans. So I can't really answer that question. Leading brands, I would say that I've probably named them for the Germans. I would say If you want to know what German high horology looks like, it's ALS. If you want to know what German tool watch looks like, it's Zinn. If you want to know what German casual watch looks like, it's Nomos. On the Swiss side, I have no friggin' idea, because there are just so many brands that depending on which you want to look at, it'll be someone different. Joseph Cook asks, which brands do I think gives the best bang for buck at their respective price points? I would say sub $1,000, I'd be looking at Seiko. Across the board, model in, model out, range in, range out. You can, year in, year out, you can pretty much rely on Seiko giving you a good, solid watch for the money at pretty much anything below $1,000. When you start getting to around $1,000 to $2,000, there are a couple of Swiss brands I'd start looking at pretty hard. Alpina, which is a brand I really like. Fortis, which is a brand I really like. I think they give you excellent bang for buck in that price range. Once you get beyond 2,000, I'd actually say the Germans. I'm stealing a bit here, and I'm reminded, Worn and Wound did this in their podcast, I think last week. They were talking about this price range, so maybe I'm stealing from them, but I think the Germans generically really own that price band of say $2,000 to $5,000-ish. Whether it's Zinn or whether it's Mueller Glasuta or whether it's Damasco or Stover, I don't think anyone gives a better watch, brings more technology and more design and more thought to their watches in that range than the Germans. Above $5,000, you know what? Above $5,000, I don't think bang for buck means anything anymore. So I probably wouldn't even try and answer that question. Timothy, oh, that's right. I remember you have a bunch of questions. You're looking at a Black Bay 36 for your 30th. Excellent watch. How much should be angling for a discount from RRP? Mate, I don't know. If you're asking me specifically about that watch, I have no idea. Generally, my approach to thinking about if I was going to get discount from an AD, I'd be looking online, see what I can get. Make sure that the price you're looking at online includes any taxes, because it's kind of unfair to expect your local AD to eat your local taxes on your behalf. So you've got to add any local taxes to your online price. And then you'd hope that your AD would get towards the cheapest online price plus local taxes. I think it'd be unrealistic to expect them to match it. If they did, great, you're doing really well. But I'd be thinking, if this is where they can get, this is your lowest online, add to that your taxes, and if you can get like halfway there, I'd generally be happy. What other watches should you be looking at that price range? The reason I put your question here is because it comes immediately after the previous question. You should be looking at the Germans. Tudor Black Bay 36 is 25, $3,000, somewhere like that. You are smack bang in German watch territory. Zinn, Mueller Glasuta, Damasco, Stover, you're right in their price range, and they sell great watches, which are actually, many of which are quite similar in style to your Black Bay 36, many of which will bring far more technology to the party, and be quite different to your, as in you can turn up, if you turn up to a Red Bar or something, there will be a bunch of Tudors, but good chance you'll be the only Union Glasuta or something. So I'd be looking at the Germans. You fancy buying a bronze watch and thinking of the Oris Big Pointer date. Great watch, I personally love it. I wouldn't buy it because I'm not a big fan of the cathedral hands, but that's just me. I think it's an excellent watch. Oris can be a bit up and down. They do have some great value watches and they have some pretty poor value watches. I think the Oris 65 is pretty poor value, but I think the Oris Big Pointer Date is actually good value. So I think that's a watch I have no problems recommending. What's my preferred bronze watch? I love bronze watches, but that said, I don't buy a lot, so maybe I like the idea of them. Or it could be that the ones I want are too expensive, because the one I want would be the Mont Blanc 1858 Geographic, the one with the two worlds. I think that's an amazing watch. I would love it. It's just too expensive to get onto my buying program. That's the only problem with that one. That's right. Now, the next couple, I had two people ask me questions about watch sizes. Renee just asked me a simple question about my thoughts on watch sizes, and Redcastle had a go at, I've got to quote this, the bouffant head tortoise shell glasses wearing watch community. I know exactly who you mean, who are all trying to get you to go sub 39. Yes, the chicken wrists are all kind of fighting back. Okay, look, it's just a fashion trend. Whether you go big or go small simply reflects fashion. In fact, in many ways, it's all, people talk about this in terms of a size, that there's a right size. That's just bull. The only dimension that makes any sense is lug to lug. The only dimension that makes any difference is lug to lug difference. Broadly, if you're an adult, your wrist will be at least 50 centimeters from side to side. So anything with a watch, anything with a lug to lug of less than 50, pretty much any adult can wear. It's really then just a matter about how much wrist presence you want your watch to have. Maybe people are just going for a more discreet look. It's because it's not about fit, it's about look. If you like a bigger look, which I personally do, with the exception of my vintage watches, yeah, it's a shame, but you know what do they know? You know, if they want to hide their watches, fine, go big. Back a couple, Capital. Who do I think, what do I think is the best watch released this year? I haven't really been tracking them every release. This is one I'd really need to sit down and research. Okay, maybe this is a thing. Maybe I could do it this way. You ask that question and only one watch leapt to mind and went front of mind. And this is probably because I've done like 3 videos about Breitling, and so this brand is in my head and I've been looking at this. So it's all probably unfair. But yeah, the Breitling 57 Super Ocean, that's just that sort of capsule collection, or whatever they're called, that's just in my mind. And so if you use the what watch can't I forget and that I keep thinking about metric, that would be my best watch. Two-faced watches. I recently spoke about JLC. What are my thoughts on the Reverso? Love it. I love JLC as a brand. They're a weird brand. I love the idea of the brand. I love the story of the brand. They have very few actual watches that I want to buy, which is a pain. I wish they had more watches that really I wanted to buy. And that's frustrating. But my thoughts on the Reverso, it's an icon. I love it. If I was going to buy a Reverso, if I was going to buy a JLC, that's one of the ones I'd go for. I would caution you, JLC have not treated that line, I think, with the respect it deserves. There are some fairly ropey iterations of the Reverso. Not a big fan of the Squadra ones they did. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant watch. I'd love it. If someone was going to go towards it, I'd say good on you. Just be careful you don't jump on buying a cheap Reverso and then find that you got one you didn't like, because there are some, as I said, kind of ropier iterations of that range. I got a couple of questions now from What's on My Desk and Marcus F around vintage watches. So I'll just do my vintage watch bit now. What's on My Desk asked, what's my driving, what excites me about vintage watches, and do I think I'll be doing anything other than Alpina in the next year or so? Okay, what excites me? The story that comes with a vintage watch. This is going to sound melodramatic, and it probably is, but it's kind of what I feel when I look at a watch. I recently picked up a little square Alpina from the 1930s, and I bought it from a guy in Estonia, I think it was. And when I look at that watch, what it reminds me of is everything that watch has seen. That watch saw the Second World War. That watch saw communism rise. That watch saw the terror of Stalin. That watch saw glasnost and the fall of communism. That watch saw the creation of the European Union. It saw becoming part of the European Union, and it's now seen it's now seen international travel, and is sitting on my watch in suburban Melbourne, Australia. How can you not find that exciting? How can you not look at that artifact and not be thrilled to think that now that's part of your story? I can understand people aren't, but I am. And every time I look at a vintage watch, whether it's from the, as I say, the 30s or the 60s or the 70s, it makes that journey, it makes that story part of my story, and that's something I really enjoy. Will I be adding any brands other than Alpina to my vintage collecting? Not for a little while. I've got some gaps that I still want to fill. I really want a C-Strong 10 from Alpina. I probably am going to try and pick up an actual World War II watch. It might not be Alpina branded, but an actual World War II watch. And I probably want to get like an actual gold president from Alpina. I think once I've got that, I will have sort of my Alpina collection mapped out. But that's probably a year, maybe 2 years away. So no, I don't think I'll be doing anything other than Alpina in the vintage space for a little while. Marcus F is quite skeptical. I know this from other posts. I know Marcus F is quite skeptical of vintage watches. So and his questions are mostly around that skepticism. So he's basically asking me when I bought them, how did I plan to get them working? Hence his assumption that they weren't working. Do I service them myself? Do I get someone else to do it? And what's the state of them? To the best of my ability, Marcus, I only buy watches that I know are working already and have been serviced. Sometimes that has not worked. Sometimes I've failed. But I've not yet received one that is not working at all or is working so badly it needs work. I'll jump to your last question. What is the state of my vintage watches? I own about 20 vintage watches. I have 2 that are not working as I would like them to. These require work. I do not believe in either case that work will be significant. I think it will be a routine service in both cases. At the moment, I do not have a watch repairer for that. If any of you know a good one in Melbourne, Australia, please let me know in the comments below. So that's it. That's the end of part 2 of this video. Next one will be me talking more about industry stuff and YouTubers. Anyway, thanks very much. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. I will see you all next time.